Hey Brad, can you hear me? We're doing a mic test. He's muted.
I can hear you.
I can't hear you.
What?
I can hear you all talking.
That's awesome.
Peanut butter cracker in my mouth. I apologize.
Okay, we want to make sure before we get started, you can hear us.
No, I can hear you.
Okay, thanks, sir.
All right, with that being said, then at 6:05, we will start this special meeting and public hearing of the governing body of the city of Blanco, held on September 22nd, here at the Fire Building. We'll call the special meeting to order with a roll call.
Mayor Pro Tem Salcedo,
Here.
Councilmember McClellan,
Present.
Councilmember Smith,
Here.
Councilmember Lewis,
Present.
Councilmember Devine. Here. We have a forum.
All right, let's stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order, and we will start with announcements. I have no announcements at this time. Then we'll go to item number 5, which is public comments. Do we have anybody
No one signed up.
on here? Will, nobody online?
No one has messaged.
Okay, so we have no public comments. So at 6:06, we can open the public hearing. The first item on the public hearing is the adoption of the proposed fiscal year 2020 through 2021 municipal budget, which includes city hall, public works, sewer and water, parks and streets, and the police department. So, public hearing is open. Do we have anybody that would like to speak?
Nope. Thank you, sir.
We have no speakers on public hearing, item number 1. So we will go to item number 2, public hearing on the adoption of the proposed 2020 ad valorem tax rate and levy of the 0.3503 of all taxable property within the corporate city limits of the city of Blanco, Texas. Do we have anybody that wants to speak on item number 2 regarding the tax rate? Nobody got anything on there?
Nobody's unmuted.
So with that being said, then I guess we will close the public hearing and go back to the special meeting. So under consent agenda on the special meeting, we have nothing, no items. Hopefully this is a nice one. Under new business, we have item number 1, which is discussion and take appropriate action to approve the composition, scope of work, and external funding of the joint City of Blanco and Protect Our Blanco Task Force created and charged by this council September 8th as follows. Do I need to read all of this?
Yes, sir.
A, City of Blanco members Matt Lewis, Vita Devine, Ryan Rodriguez, and Will Days, and Protect Our Blanco members John Ransom, Gabriel Gregerman, Joe Day, and David Baker, and Meadow Center facilitator Nick Dornack. B, Protect Our Blanco / Meadow Center will issue a request for qualifications from professional firms to study engineering options that provide for growth and development without discharge, recognizing recent infrastructure, operation, and financial improvements, satisfying short-term infrastructure needs within existing city boundaries, and planning toward long-term water system goals. And C, Protect Our Blanco/Meadow Center will fund the engineering and planning study, and Protect Our Blanco/Meadow Center will facilitate and provide compensation to the City of Blanco engineer for periodic review and said study. And the task force identify new funding sources for future City of Blanco infrastructure.
And we have Nick online.
So Nick, did you want to speak on this?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Sauceda and council members, can y'all hear me?
Yes,
sir.
Great. Well, I just wanted to make a quick note. I decided not to travel to Blanco this evening, but it's been great seeing you guys over the last month or so. And we have made some good progress to put together a task force. We've got a contact list and are setting up we'll be setting up our first meeting here coming up. This agenda item this evening was really in response to a request from the city council to ensure that any time from your city engineer that was put toward this effort would be compensated outside of the city. So I had a conversation with Mr. Turk last week to introduce the task force and introduce our effort. That's going to be fine. Meadows Center can have him invoice us directly for any time spent on this task force. And we look forward with this agenda item being passed to get started with our meetings and rolling out an RFQ for the engineering on this study.
Nick, when do you anticipate the RFQ going out?
Well, I anticipate that we will be able to schedule a first meeting of the task force next week. And we already have a draft or outline for the RFQ. I would expect that we could have something out in 2 to 3 weeks, just because of the compressed time frame. We want to make sure and get this done quickly.
And what time period are you going to give them to respond on the request?
I think that we can get enough responses in 2 weeks. So I would hope that we would have a contract and a study underway in about 45 days.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any discussion or questions, or staff, y'all have anything go ahead?
I just have one. This is very minor, and it just has to do with the wording of the this agenda item. If you look on number B and you go down to say, or provide for growth and development without discharge, that's kind of vague. We do have to have a discharge permit from the VNOT. So I just want to clarify that that's into the river, without discharge into the river, or minimal discharge into the river. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clarified before we move forward. But other than that, I'm happy to move forward. So. Do we actually need to?
I don't
know. Do we even need to take action? I mean, we've already authorized the task force and asked to report back. Do we have to?
Yeah, so, I mean, we're not, I don't think we need anything.
We've already appointed the task force.
Yeah.
They do the rest of it. This is more or less an update.
So we just tell Nick to go ahead and move forward, and that's enough?
Yeah, I believe so.
Should we ask Brad about that?
Brad, do you agree with that? There's nothing really to pass here, there's nothing financial that we're committing to.
I don't think that this requires any action by the city at this point, because there's no expenditure being requested, and you've already taken action to authorize the task force. So, I'm looking at the agenda item right now. It names who the task force members are, and it says that POB Meadows will issue their RFQ, and that POB Meadows will fund the engineering. So I don't think that there's really anything for the city to do other than to be updated, but I don't think there's a formal action that's required.
Thanks, Brad. So,
Nick, then you're welcome to proceed, Nick. Set up a meeting.
did you hear?
Did you hear that, Nick? I said, go ahead and proceed.
Okay, I understood that it was okay to proceed, and I'm sorry, I missed a little bit of that, but it sounds like we're going to move forward now at this point without any specific action on this agenda item by the city.
Yes, sir.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Y'all have a great evening.
Thank you too.
All right, with that, we will go on to item number 2. Item number 2 is to discuss and consider action on the approval of ordinance 2020-012 of the city of Blanco, Texas, setting and approving the municipal budget for the 2020/through 2021 fiscal year, funding municipal purposes, authorizing expenditures, providing for findings of fact, enactment, filing of budget, repealer, severability, effective date, and proper notice and reading. So, I know there's a method to this madness, right?
The ordinance is flagged as number 2.
Okay,
Yeah, so this is,
which budget, what piece of paper are we approving, Will?
the actual budget.
We're on the budget, but
Take the budget stuff that's in your packet and just
actual,
look at this.
we're swapping out attachment A of that first ordinance.
Beyond that, here back, if they have the already revised, the budget reduced expenses, great cost to some. So of the top, this one right here, if you go to page 3, Paula is over at the city hall right now trying to consolidate all of these individual department budgets into one city overall budget. Everything is summarized where it says city hall, water treatment plant, water down at the bottom of the page, the total proposed expense and total proposed income. All that is summarized and reflected here. If I can get individually by departments. As soon as she finishes the overall budget, we'll have one piece of paper that reflects those exact same numbers. The consolidation of these. Do I have everybody with me so far?
Yeah, but you're gonna have to move a little slower for me, I'm sorry.
I'm all about the land development.
Okay, but, Will and I had gone over this the other day, then we went over it again today, and then I need just a few minutes to go over this again. Okay, I'm confused.
For What I'm looking at is profit and loss budget versus actual. So what I'm looking for, this is what I'm looking at, the 2019-2020 actual. That's what this one is?
So this is the proposed budget.
Okay.
It's dated wrong. The reason we got the summary, I'm waiting, having her get the summarize of all of it. This is the proposed budget, not last year, not the current year. It's
Right.
proposed 2021.
Okay.
Everything you're seeing in your packet now is proposed 2021.
Okay.
Okay,
Now, if you go here,
1920 on
second, third page, sorry. If you go here,
Yeah, I was looking at that one before.
the income for City Hall reflects here versus the expense and so on for each one of these. It's just summarized here. Because most of the time, I don't think you care about what we spend for insurance and so on and so forth.
okay,
Well, we do.
yes, sir, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
All right, I know we made adjustments to the police budget,
Yes,
and as I look at the total vehicle expenses, it's at $93,000. Is that correct?
Police and what?
so, yes, that's correct. So what is missing from there, and it may not show, this is on the summary, we took out the 70, it doesn't show because it was under a line item. There's additional $70,000.
Okay, the vehicle expense is gonna be fuel maintenance.
Tires,
Yeah,
equipment, repair and transmission, all those kind of things that go into.
so originally we had the vehicle expense at 93,000, and then we had an additional 70,000
That's correct.
in there for replacement vehicles or
Right.
upgrades.
So the total budget went down from 1.217. The total expenses went down to 1.187,
About 70,000.
about 70,000.
You know, we had some new equipment going in the cars, in the new cars, because it couldn't be transferred from one model to the other. Do we still have that
That's still
equipment?
in there. Yes,
And we're still gonna need that equipment?
quite possibly, because we have money for, in the mobility funds, we have the opportunity as we go along through the next few quarters to gauge our income and still purchase cars. The equipment that goes into it is not.
Okay, but if we don't buy that equipment, then they don't spend that line item.
Some of it will have to get used,
Yeah, yeah.
because we have to replace equipment on vehicles.
Some, yeah.
We have vehicles that aren't fully equipped.
Right, I understood that, yeah.
But not for the new vehicles. We don't buy new vehicles, we don't need it, and we don't use it.
And our maintenance of cars.
So that's when we'll, amend the budget according to, so we have a record of why.
Okay. You know, while I find the spreadsheets helpful, I think, and I'll poll the rest of y'all, that as long as we have the totals, and this is the, showing the budget that is outlined on the replacement sheet, page three, that Will provided, showing that we have proposed total expenses of $4.12 million and projected revenues at $4.30 million. And we have, I guess, a projected income of $177,000. I'm receptive to making a motion and without the supplemental spreadsheets, as long as they're complicit.
It's gonna show the exact numbers and,
Right, it has to.
but we'll get it to you before the night's over.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna
Get Paul still alive over there, not checking.
Yeah, door may be open, the car's gone. You know,
I wouldn't blame her today.
yeah.
So,
I would like to make a motion that we approve ordinance 2020-0, no, it's not dash zero, 2020-0-012, budget for fiscal year 2020, 2021, as outlined in the revised sheets that we just received.
So we have a motion for Mr. Smith. Do you have a second? I'll second. We have a second for Mr. McClellan. Do we have any more discussion? For that, then now.
I have to do a roll
Oh,
call.
yeah.
Roll call vote, Saucedo,
Yes.
McClellan,
Aye.
Smith,
Yes.
Lewis,
Aye.
Devon. Motion passed.
Looks like
Yes, it's had.
motion passed.
Thank you.
Now, we'll get complicated in that next, but I'm gonna let Lori.
Yeah.
Go back to page 2 of this sheet. She also has the ordinance attached, but this is easier.
Alright,
Page 2.
so we'll, we'll go with, can we do number 3 and 4 kind of get it together?
Yes.
We talk about it together and then, yeah. So item number 3 is to discuss and consider action on the 2020 proposed maintenance and operating tax rate, .1470 to fund the 2020-2021 budget. And number 4 is to discuss and consider action on the 2020 proposed tax debt rate, .2033 to fund the 2020-2021 debt obligation.
So basically, there's two tax rates. You have the no new revenue rate, and you have the voter approval rate. And our no new revenue rate is, if you're looking at the cover page, the no new revenue rate is, last year it was called the effective tax rate. Now it's called the no new revenue rate. That's 0.3378. And then the second rate is the voter approval rate, which was the old rollback tax rate, and that rate is 0.3503. And that's the one we're trying to pass tonight, is the voter approval rate. And that rate is made up of two rates. One is our maintenance and operation rate, and the second rate is our debt rate. And they're broken out on the spreadsheet. So our maintenance and operation rate is 0.147033. So if you add those up, you get the voter approval rate, which is 0.3503. So we have to approve them as a separate line item before we approve the tax rate. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes. I'm sorry.
No.
And we visited about this earlier today, but apparently I misunderstood in our prior conversation
Okay.
on the non-new revenue.
The no new revenue tax.
No, I'm sorry, no new revenue rate.
That one's 0.3378.
That's correct. The voter approved tax rate, or formerly known as the rollback tax rate,
Correct.
and you're telling me we have to approve the voter approved tax rate, not the no new revenue tax rate?
Correct. Correct. We want to. We would,
That's the voter, that's the max we can do voter approved without going to a election.
correct.
If we go to the no new revenue rate of 0.333, we'll lose somewhere around $187,000 annually.
Okay. The tax rate we had for 2019,
Correct.
2019, through, which is
Correct.
the current tax, okay, the current tax rate is not the 47890.
No,
It is the 29270.
it's 0.36.
3.615, yeah.
Yes.
Where it says property.
I got you.
Where's
I'm with
the
you.
property tax?
That's the combined rate.
In reality, taxes are going down rate-wise.
Rate-wise, if you did get an escalation in your assessed tax.
Which everybody did,
Yeah, the appraisal value went up.
or at least I did.
It's technically a wash, maybe a little bit in our favor, but.
Okay. I do understand that. Thank you.
Yeah, and the voter approval rate is a little bit higher than the no new revenue rate. But, if you look at the first line on the cover, this budget raises more revenue from property taxes than last year's budget by an amount of $30,102, which is a 3.7 increase from last year's budget. So. Any other questions?
Any other questions or discussion?
I'm ready to make another motion.
All right.
All right, here we go. I make a motion that we approve the 2020 maintenance and operating tax rate of 0.1470 to fund the 2020-2021 budget.
We have a motion by Mr. Smith. Do we have a second?
I'll go ahead and second that.
Second for Mr. Lewis. Any more discussion on that? Not, let's have a roll call.
No, that one's on.
Okay. So all in favor?
All right,
Aye. All opposed, one, all right. Happy to be done.
And number 4,
Now, number 4,
which is the second part of the sum.
all right. I make a motion that we approve the 2020 debt tax rate of 0.2033 to fund the 2020-2021 debt obligations.
we have a motion for Mr. Smith. You have a second? Second from Mr.
Everybody
Ryan.
gets a turn.
Any more discussion? Not, all in favor?
All right,
Number 5, so now we'll go on to number 5. To discuss and consider approval of resolution 2020-R-010 of the city of Blanco, Texas. Excuse me. I've done too much reading there. Ratifying expenditures, filing a budget, repealers, severability, effective the municipal budget for fiscal year 2020 to 2021. Funding municipal purposes, authorizing date and proper notice. So,
5 is a culmination, is a resolution, which is a culmination of 3 and 4.
Do we need, ready for the motion?
Yep, ready for a motion?
You want to make it? or you
now
want?
it's your turn.
All right, I make a motion that we approve resolution 2020-R-010 of the city of Blanco, Texas, ratifying expenditures, filing of budget, repealer, severability, effective the municipal budget for fiscal year 2020-2021, funding municipal purchases, authorizing date and proper notice.
We have a
Yeah.
motion.
Second. Go ahead.
We have a second. That's it. Second. Mr. Vine. So now we have a roll call vote.
Salcedo,
Yes.
McClellan,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes,
Lewis,
Aye.
Devine.
Yes.
Now we'll go to item number 6, which is discuss and consider action on the approval of ordinance 2020-013 of the city of Blanco, Texas, setting and approving the 2020 ad valorem tax rate and levy of .3503 per $100 of assessed valuation of all taxable property within the corporate city limits of the city of Blanco, Texas. Basically, this is the ordinance ratifying what we,
This is the tax levy.
what we approved. Somebody want to make a,
Yeah, good, okay. I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 0.3503 per $100, which is effectively a 3.7% increase in the tax rate. Ordinance 2020-013, 2020 tax levy ordinance.
anybody want to second the tax rate increase? Yeah.
Well, actually, it's not really an increase, it's just an adjustment.
And this is also a roll call
Why
vote.
does it say that it's
So-
effectively a 3.7 increase in the cost increase?
Well, it's that way, but the rate goes down because the appraisal values went up. It's not our doing.
Right,
It's effectively at 3.7.
I see.
So we're lowering the rate, so it's less of an increase.
We're good.
We do our part as a city to lower it, the county rates up.
Nice.
All right, so we have a motion, do we have a second? Do we already have a second?
We have a second, McClellan seconded it.
Okay, that's it. All
Roll
right,
call vote. Salcedo,
yes.
McClellan,
Aye.
Smith,
Yes.
Lewis,
Aye.
Devine.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried.
All right.
We're just burning through these agenda items.
Before 10 o'clock. Smith and Vine Branch afterwards.
All right.
Aye.
Item number 7, discuss and consider action on temporary food truck vendor permit.
I hesitate to take this one up today, but we're gonna talk about it in general. Currently, the city ordinance and the UDC reads 2 ways for food trucks. One, you can buy a temporary food permit, which allows you to, as long as you have a place that's not on city property, and you have permission from the property owner to put it on there, you're allowed to do 10 days out of the month. And that's it. That's a temporary food truck. The alternative is you want to have a permanent or a more permanent fixture, which you have to have a place to do that. The UDC reads that it must be filed as a special use permit. Special use permit is good for 12 months. It is a $1,200 fee and it has to go through P&Z prior to going to city council for approval. So it's a lengthy process to do.
Did you say $400?
12
Well,
$1,200.
for a special use permit,
Wow.
What's the fee on the 10-day permit for the temporary?
150. So we don't have anything in the middle. We need to address it. I think Matt has agreed that we need to make some in the middle, but we originally drawn that away for the reason of preventing permanent food trucks taking over without, we gotta have a place to put them, and we have never designated as a city a place to put them. My request from a small business standpoint here would be that we allow a business that might need a food truck to apply for a temporary permit that's good for 180 days. And which buys us enough time to go back and address the UDC and address the ordinance so that they might be able to open business, serve customers, whatever the case may be.
How are we addressing some of the 2 trucks, trailers that are here now?
Well, there's 2 that are permanent. They're grandfathered in prior to this ordinance.
Okay, so they don't have to pay a fee.
They don't, they're grandfathered in from the previous ordinance. So I think that is up either in 2021 or 2022. I've got to go back and look at that. I told Matt I would do that before the meeting. I didn't do it.
Okay.
I forgot to, but it's coming up here pretty soon. Now, they had certain criteria that they had to build more of a permanent structure other than just having a food truck. If you take a look at the one next to Peterson's, they have built a cover and that's covered seating area and things like that. Still not enclosed, but they've made progress. Looking at the one on the north side of town, it's still just a food truck. They're both loved very much as, as far as their food is, but we're gonna have to address that eventually. I will probably look at getting some help to address that, as how we want to address that as a city going forward once their grandfathering is up. But the other issue comes, unless a business has a need and a desire for a food truck more than 10 days out of a month, then we have no assigned place for them either. They can't sit on the square. They technically can't sit, can't remember the footage, but they can't sit so many feet away from an operating business so they can't sit next to Dairy Queen. They can't sit next to Subway. They've got to have a place that is other than a private property business.
What if somebody wants to have a popsicle or a snow cone truck?
That technically falls, we still do a permit for them, but that technically falls under the lemonade stand type stuff, unless it is a rolling Kona Ice, say that. Kona Ice is a rolling deal that shows up, and does events.
Yeah.
Or they
I'm talking about when I was a kid, we'd hear the bells and we'd go all run out to the street, here comes a guy on this.
that's fine because that's a moving vehicle.
Yeah.
They still have to have a food permit,
Right.
but they're not parked in one place for an extended period of time.
No, okay.
So can I
Sure.
take up?
I'm struggling with it.
Sure. So just for a little history, we tried to do the food truck permit. I kind of felt that it fell short at the time, but we did need some permitting to address it. And since COVID has come up, we have an issue here. So under the state rules, in order for a bar to open up, they have to have 51% food sales. There's been an exception made by the governor so that they can, and TABC, so they can allow a food truck to come on to their premises so that they can meet that requirement. We have a business in town that is struggling to get back open, and they need to meet that requirement. And they need to do it legitimately and not be trying to dance around a bunch of loopholes in order to stay open. They're in a gray area. And that's why this has come up, because we do have a business here that is about to, they're struggling. And I feel that, they need a little bit of help here if they're going to do it correctly. And I think that the best way for them to do that would be for us to grant them a variance, I guess is what we'll call it.
It's just it's a temporary
A waiver.
on the ordinance until we can further define what it is.
Right.
And what kind of fee are you thinking this middle ground will be?
It'll still be a temporary food permit
So
for
it's gonna be
$150.
But it would be a longer period.
And I don't care what it is, I do 180 days, because that gives enough time for council meetings to address.
Yeah.
It can be 30 days, it could be consecutive 30 days, it can be 6 months, that's up to you.
Okay, but I guess the current ordinance is $1,200 a year.
For a permanent type fixture, unless you want to do it temporary for 10 days out of the month.
Which I feel is an excessive fee for a small business like that. Personally.
Well, what I was thinking about just making it, my thought is if our current ordinance is $1,200 a year, if you want 3 months, it's $300, or you could be $100 a month. But you charge $150 for 10
But the
days.
problem is the current ordinance requires it to be a special use permit, which has to go through P and Z. It's another 30-day process before we could get into
So it's not just the money.
it's not just related to time.
But we could go back and address that when I do think we need to look at that
Yeah.
food truck ordinance again, because it was pretty sticky, if y'all remember. I don't know if y'all recall, but I was never thrilled with it.
It's just got no in between. It's got permanent and it's got 10 days, and that's nothing else in between.
And it doesn't address stuff like Lavender Festival. So Lavender Festival
Well, it does, because that's what the 10-day thing is for.
Right, but see, that's hurting Lavender Festival if they're having to pay their rental fee to Lavender Festival, and then they gotta come over and buy another,
We've always waived
we've
it.
waived it.
I don't want to-
But some other administration might not do that, and it could kill, the vendors for Lavender Festival, because if you're having to choke up, what is it, $450 for their vendor fee for those, plus another $150. How many tacos do you have to sell
Well,
just to make up those
just to
fees?
take a brief conversation on Lavender Festival,
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and state my $450 is great. The city should at least get $100 of that, because we clean up behind all those vendors. We clean all the oil and popcorn greases, which I love the guy who does it, but it's right in front of City Hall. I say we, I mean, right.
Well, I saw Mr. Ailey out there with the pressure washer from those people that were set up over there.
That's how, some of them do, but not all of them do. And we waive all the fees and costs associated with Lavender Fest. There should be some.
Could we temporarily amend our temporary permit that for the 10-day permit was $150 to be a 30-day permit?
We can, that's what I'm open to.
I'm just throwing this out as an idea. If we amend it, so for $150 a month, then it wouldn't have to go through planning and zoning. This establishment would have an avenue to rectify their lack of food services immediately at an expense of $150 a month.
If I order a council, I can do that, absolutely.
If it were they're not coming in asking for it. I would say to that specific person, yes. But if we amend it to say that, that means that any food truck can come in and buy a 30-day permit and set up wherever they want, 30 days and
No, they have to be attached to a business.
that have.
And
We
it
can
has to be
make
on
it
private property.
COVID-19 related amendments.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I want it to be specific because what I would rather.
Say, due to COVID-19, a business that is in need of a temporary mobile food truck may get an extended permit for such amount, for such amount. of days.
That's what I'm liking to hear. Right there. So,
I'd go
I should have
along
wrote
with
that down.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I did it some other thought.
Oh, has it?
What are the implications here for guys that come and sell Pecos, melons out there certain time of the year?
Well, that's a peddler's permit, because they're not handling raw food products, so that's a peddler's permit, that's actually working very well, and if I really had not read it, so I could up that a little bit, but,
How much is that?
I think it is $50.
For how long? That's so long.
Can't remember.
That's a lot of money.
It's 6 months, I don't know. Yeah, at least
But-
6 months.
yeah, I do want to encourage that. I mean, that's one of the things that I used to love about Blanco is when we first moved here, you could come right down here on the square and buy melons, and there was a shrimp guy for a while, and you don't really see those.
Well, we've got to attract more of those and get those things in here. What happened to a lot of them is there was no set, once the square quit allowing or quit promoting, I should say, some of those, opportunities for vendors, then they started moving out and getting on people's private property. Because the one I'm talking about that was specific, that started, got a big stir. And, I feel bad, I bought watermelons there myself, and specifically because they had black diamonds. But you could go right there, but then they got crossed with some
Yeah,
traffic
I
issues
remember.
and so on. But then we have them going on different parts of private property. We still got to manage that. We probably should write it out in the peddler's permit a little bit more specific to where you can and can't go. But, I would like to move towards having something that is in conjunction with the city and possibly chamber to be able to get more promotion in here.
I'd say the courthouse, we have market days, we could have.
Days is one thing, and I don't.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but like market days where they could come and they can occupy one parking space on a certain
Well,
portion of
parking
the square.
spaces belong to the city, so that's not a problem.
Oh, I thought those parking spaces belonged
Parking places belong to the city, the sidewalk belongs to the courthouse.
courthouse, okay.
So if they want to turn around and park in front with their back to the deal, they could do that. But I'm more proposed to make a little more conjunction, let's all work together. And promote people coming down here to buy. And I don't want it just on market days. I would be fine with it every weekend. If a guy wants to come out here every Saturday morning and sit here on the square, I am all for that, because I could use a watermelon.
I'm a little bothered that somebody has to have a permit to do that, to pull the truck up and sell melons out of the back of their truck. Actually, I mean, I think that might be a deterrent rather than encouraging more people to do that kind of thing.
Location is the deterrent. We have plenty of people that want to do it. Its location is the deterrent. We don't have a designated area to do that. And so the problems have changed as the city has grown and developed, where they may have done it on private property in the past, and it's no longer acceptable as that private property. That's why I would like to try to get something more here on the square and have them centralized here on the square. We also ran into some issues, and we still do, out on 281 South. It's a high-speed area right now. They've got a peach stand there, and nothing wrong with the guy's peaches. It's just, that's an on and off spot that's very, very dangerous because people are doing 90 out of town. I wish it'd stay a little longer, a little slower.
Yeah.
But, if we had played, if we could allow him to sit up here on the square, currently, they're not allowed to sit on the city property. Even with a permit.
Why not?
That's in the UDC. It's stuff that we need to address and make more.
Yeah.
And it's been there for, it's not anything new, it's not something, it's been there for a while. But the whole thing,
Remember that couple that sold the melons out here?
Yeah.
Forever.
I forget their name now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they no longer.
They retired though. They didn't, they were getting too old. I think.
Well, that's the way that's, I don't want to say it.
Okay.
but there's no reason why it can't come back. And
No kidding.
there's nothing wrong with a small fee for a peddler's permit as long as, because
Small.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too far off topic, but I would be into promoting a farmer's market like they have in Dripping Springs, that organic farmer's market.
That'd be great.
It's wonderful, Nan drives up there and she gets our honey and all kinds of, stuff. And we have,
that's a good chamber event to be held in the park.
and like we have a local organic farmer that delivers now, Real Foods delivers to us, but I see her setting up here occasionally, but we need to promote those local farmers and people that are in our community so that they can make a living and we can get farm to table right here in Blanco. So
Yeah,
I don't want to go too far.
That's a good place to put it, IGS Park underneath the cover every Saturday, where it's underneath the cover when it's available. But the other part of that is if we had a place like that, it would slow down some of the posts on Facebook that I have eggs, would you like to buy some? Everybody's got eggs they're trying to sell on Facebook right now. If they had a place to sell it, maybe, I want to.
How do you get on there? I got eight.
No, I'm not. I got eggs, I'm good, I'm good.
So back to the topic, what we said was we were going to,
Due to COVID-19.
okay,
Food trucks associated with a permanent business may apply for an extended temporary permit.
with a, okay. May,
And then you'll determine that length of time. You
extended,
said 30 days?
Yeah, 30 days at a time and they get.
Is everybody okay with that, or do you want to go with different?
So by doing 30 days, it means we have to vote each 30 days, or we saying,
No, we
we can do it in 30-day increments?
It's 30-day increments up to 6 months.
Up to 6 months, yeah, that's, I think we
So we'll do the 30-day increments up.
Yeah,
So that way it's.
so we're saying $150 a month, basically.
Yeah.
Up to 6 months.
Yeah, $3 a day.
Well, we could, if they want to pay it front, we could just have a reduced, it'd be $150.
Yeah, that's,
and then
that seems a
$50
little
for each
pricey.
after, as long as you're consecutive. I mean,
And we want these people to make money, we want them to be
Keep
here.
it somewhat in line with what the permanent food truck currently is at $1,200 a year.
okay.
So,
But I think that's high just for the permit personally.
But that's a special use permit.
Right.
That
But that,
we don't need to change the special use permit fee. We need to recategorize where that permanent food truck goes.
right. Because when we're talking about this permit fee, that's not gonna be the only expense that vendor's gonna be faced with. They may be faced with rent for where they're setting up. They're faced with all their food service permitting from the state. They may have to be in compliance with a lot of other permitting. And for us to stick them for an additional 12,
Drop it to $100 a month, period. Drop it $100 a month.
I mean, they're competing against the restaurants in town, and they're paying property taxes and everything else.
They are the restaurants in town, but are they not?
well, they could be. Then we get into other food courts and stuff, but just on that basis, for somebody to come up and say, set up at,
They can only set up, they can only get this permit as it applies to an existing business,
Right,
i.e. the bar.
right.
They need food to stay open, they need a food truck,
Or possibly the bowling alley.
or possibly the bowling alley.
Yeah.
They need food to be able to open up.
Right.
That's all it is. It can't be pull up here on the square, that's a whole other issue, a whole other permit.
Right.
And
right. And I'm not really hung up on the amount of the fee. What I'm hung up on is the fact that we need to get them a way to comply. That's what I really care
I
about.
think that's what we're doing.
Yeah, we are.
So, are you making a motion?
I will, but do we want to address the fee further? Do you want us to keep it at 150?
I'd like to see it at 150, just, all I'd like to do is, instead of 10 days, they can have 30 days. And it's due to the COVID-19, it's up to 6 months. And, that way, and it's gotta be in conjunction with an existing business.
Right. Is everybody else good with that? Okay. You want me to make a motion?
Just also put an end date on it, say
What?
December 31st.
Well, that's not 6
No,
months.
It's option, they could stay there
I was hoping Christmas was a lot further away.
6 months is the,
I'm just gonna say for up to 6 months,
Yeah.
and then they can come back and we can re-talk about them in 6 months. How's that?
And then basically, this would be a moot point once COVID-19 is,
over.
I think that's what Will's trying to say, we need to have an end to it so that a year from now, somebody will come in and say, hey, I want it, so, or we
don't know
in
what-
6 months again and
Yeah.
decide.
Somebody comes in January, wants the same thing for 6 months.
So if you go on forever.
Somebody comes in March, wants another 6 months, that's why I say.
Right, but we don't know when COVID's gonna be over, and that's up to the governor.
Bar, so, yeah.
You say due to COVID-19.
Chief, I didn't quite catch what you said.
Due to COVID, could you put some language in there that says until the governor lifts the ban on bars?
Okay,
Because once the bars are open, there's no need for the food truck.
right,
The purpose of this food truck is to get the bar.
right,
Right.
That's correct.
okay.
Okay.
Is it solely related to bars? Is there any other?
no, it's
Pretty
not.
Like, oh, now it's
Main.
The bar and bowling alley, like,
Why don't we just let a 12-month, have this effective for 12 months, and we can visit again.
Yeah, okay.
And then,
Okay.
if COVID goes away before then, they shut it down, move the food truck out, if they decide they like it, they'll keep it. And
They can come back and get a special use permit,
That's right.
right?
That's right. After 12 months, they have to go for a special use permit, and better get started a couple of months early.
Okay.
Hey.
I'm so happy to see your face. See you smiling eyes behind
You ready?
Yes.
there.
All
Okay.
All right. You
Got it ready?
you ready for me to start talking? Okay. Okay, I make a motion, that due to COVID-19, food trucks associated with a business may apply for an extended temporary permit for up to 6 months. And this will apply for up to 12 months, after which,
If you say after rate,
It costs,
well, the rate's already set.
$150 for 40 days.
Yeah, the rate's already there, so I don't have, right?
it seems like clear to me.
Okay,
But the thing is,
Because it's 10 for $10. Right now, that's for 10 days. So just for, yeah, just go
Yeah.
clarify.
okay, so the permit rate will be $150 per 30 days,
Yes.
per month.
All right. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Now, second.
Double second.
Who's that?
We have a second. We have any more discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
All righty. With that, Mr. Bullock, do we have anything do we need to go to, executive?
Yeah, we should, just a few minutes on, wastewater treatment plant issues.
Okay. So then at 7:01, we will close the special meeting and go into, executive session in accordance with Texas Government Code, section 551.071 and 551.072. Yeah, that's it. So we'll, tell me when everybody's up.
This conference is no longer
So then at 7:35, we will come back to our special meeting. And in executive session, there's no action to be taken on either item 1 or 2. So with that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Could I just ask a question before we received a memo about 13th Street? We know what happened there.
I think the project has been postponed due to the rain. It was postponed from Monday to exactly today. Now with the rain chances completing and everything this afternoon and the rain moving on, they're hopefully going to be starting the project here tomorrow. So the road closures and such from there have been moved to tomorrow.
So go out the other way.
Yeah.
What's that?
So you're gonna have to go out the other way then.
Just drive right down it.
Maybe I can get the locals to go out that way.
I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Y'all.
I almost got through that without my blood pressure.
This conference is no longer being recorded.